Well, I want to welcome everyone here this morning to our 2020 updates for Holstein, Ontario and the Field Service Project, as well as we welcome everyone who's joining us from Holstein, Canada as well. We would rather have done these sorts of meetings in person, but virtually seems to be the way things are going these days. And so to keep everybody safe, but well informed, we felt this was the best way to proceed. We've also invited a lot of all of our provincial and national directors and the staff from both Holstein, Ontario and Holstein, Canada to join on the 3 calls. So welcome to everyone from those teams who are joining us as well. We are on a platform webinar, as Marina has indicated. So if you have any questions, please text them to the phone number listed on the screen so that we can address them. We have the number listed on each slide, so if a question comes up during the presentation, it will be easily accessible. There's also a chat function within Zoom, and if you're familiar with that, it's fairly simple to use. Then we can do our best to answer questions as we go. Some questions will be answered within the slides. So if your question has been asked, we will eventually get to you, don't worry. Some slides will be heavy though with content and a lot of wording, but we'll work through them together to try and give everyone as much information as we can. Our main focus today includes reviewing some 2020 updates and just to give context for where we are today. We will then have a presentation from Holstein Canada on regionalization, and thank you to Gerald Skipper, our President, and CEO Vincent Landry for being here today. Finally, we'll be getting into the details then of our Field Services Project, which will make up the bulk of the presentation here today.
Thanks, Tara. So I'm Marina Johnson. I'm the General Manager of Holstein, Ontario. In the essence of time, I'm just going to jump right into it, but we felt it would be beneficial for us to start with a little bit of a review of the roles within Holstein, Ontario. We've had a lot of people question, excuse me, a lot of people question, sort of how decisions are made or who makes what decisions. And I think it can be really important to have an understanding of that to understand the Field Service Project a little bit more effectively. And so we've really got 2 different components. And this structure is a very similar structure that you'd see in almost any not-for-profit out there, that works in this type of world. And so we've got our governance component, which is managed by the board. And then we have our operations component, which is managed by the general manager. And the GM is really that communication link between the 2. And if you think of it a little bit like, sort of on your own farm. So you have your farm that produces the milk, and then you have the processor that processes the milk. And then you've got the milk truck that sort of goes in between. And so both are dealing with the milk, but they have different functions and responsibilities. And the same is very true for, our 2 components of the governance and the operations. So on the governance side, we have things like our strategic objectives. And those are things like your vision and mission, things like your long and short-term goals for the organization, or sort of strategic goals for the organization. And these are set by the board of directors. You then have the bylaws. Now these are voted on by the membership, which is why we have 2 proposed bylaw changes that we have coming to the AGM in June. And basically those have been approved to be presented to the membership by the board, but must be voted on by the membership. And the bylaws really make up the foundation for the organization. And so strong bylaws mean strong foundation for the organization moving forward. We then have our internal policies. These are voted on by the board of directors. And so this is sort of the framework for how the general manager is going to run the organization. And a few examples of sort of what we mean by internal policies. There are things like health and safety, handling of finances, IT and technology, just some of those really policies on how decisions and what should be done with the organization internally. Then we move to the operations side, which is where the GM controls things. So the board only has 1 employee. That employee is the general manager. Outside of the policies, they cannot dictate requirements for the actual team. So it's the general manager who is in charge of the actual team. So on the operations side, we see the day-to-day management. And that means, things like the HR things related to performance and salary. That means what the reps or what the team does in a day. So how they structure their day and what they do in terms of activities. And really what it boils down to is, in that world, the GM is the boss. We then see the GM being responsible for managing the business side. And this would be similar to what you'd have on your own farms. So this is things like making sure the bills get paid, that laws like health and safety regulations are followed, all of those sort of general business requirements you see in any sort of organization. And so ideally, if the GM is managing the team and managing the general business requirements, then they would be achieving the board objectives or those goals that the board set for them moving forward. And so hopefully that's what you would see in how the organization is structured and how decisions are made and how they move forward. And so our goal there, like I said, was just to give you an understanding. And I think that'll really help when you look at the field service project and how that decision was made and what's involved in that decision today.
So I know that everyone is accustomed to our annual general meeting being in February, but as life is not the same for anyone these days, we've decided to move our annual general meeting to June 23rd and 24th. This will allow us to take advantage of the option for an outdoor meeting. With COVID and all the restrictions, we felt that this was the most, made the most sense. And there will be a lot more upcoming information in the winter issue of the Link. So stay tuned to that for that, and we'll have more details there to follow.
So let's take a look at 2020 and starting with the impact on staffing for COVID-19. So some of this you may already know, some of it might be a refresher, but it's good to have an understanding of where we're sitting today so that you can understand where we're going in the future. So of course, we were part of the government mandated shutdown, March 18th to June 1st. This means that our field staff and the classifiers at Holston Canada were all pulled off the road. So as a sort of FYI, on average, we bring in, it's just under 15,000 in monthly income from classification alone. And then of course we have the registration income that you see the field reps pull in, on the work that they're doing on farm. So certainly a financial impact there that both parties have worked really, really hard to catch up from since being back on the road. We also closed our office and formally moved all staff to a work from home program, and that's continuing now. So our office is still closed and all staff are working from home. We have ongoing event restrictions. This is very much dependent on where the event is being held and so which health unit that event is working with. And so we are trying to stay up to speed on what's happening. But I think it's really important to remember that we are a business. And so we are legally required to follow government mandates when it comes to our staff, when it comes to everything that we do. So it's very, very important to remember with regards to Holston, Ontario. We've also had some insurance considerations. Our event insurance covers, it's anywhere from 100 to 150 events a year is what we're sort of covered under for our insurance. And so of course, with this pandemic, our insurance company set some pretty clear standards of what they expect from us in terms of that coverage and having it apply to events. So those restrictions and those considerations are ongoing. We then, of course, have the health and safety requirements imposed by the government that are still ongoing for our team as well. And the interesting thing about this that I just want to mention is that, again, we have to follow the health guidelines per health unit. So if a health unit is in lockdown, for example, if Peel is locked down, then our reps cannot travel into that area to go on farm. And so it's really important that we are aware of what each health unit is going through and what color they are. The government is using colors so that we can follow the appropriate measures required for that specific health unit. So that's something that's ongoing that we're staying very much on top of. But despite all these struggles and all these restrictions and regulations, there's some things that I'm really proud of that we've accomplished in the last sort of 9-month time period. The first one is that we completed a webinar on showmanship with Mariah Beckett and Matt Lang. And this actually was done live and then posted to YouTube. And we've had over 5,500 views on this event alone. We also completed 5 judging classes online that people could take part in. And so I just want to give a special thank you to Ron Beth, Winwright, Cherry Crest, Brook Turn, and Greenlark Farms for their help and support with those judging classes. We completed a herd management package for 4-H members, and this included resources and activities for them to complete. And we actually gave them 30 pedigrees for sort of a mini herd for them to complete those activities on. We completed our online Holstein show. And so I just want to give a thanks to our exhibitors who took part and also our judge, Brian Carskadden, for that. And then we completed 8 electronic newsletters. And this was to help keep members informed this summer with the summer issue of The Link being canceled. And then finally, we completed some industry insider videos. And we're actually hoping to continue doing these in the future because they were quite well received and just a lot of fun to do. And so I just want to thank Dean Karn and Kyle Stockdale for their help in putting those together. So just wanted to share sort of the 6 things that we're excited about that we were able to achieve this year, despite all the restrictions and struggles that were happening.
Okay, so now we're going to roll through some of the financial impacts that COVID-19 had on the branch. While the beginning of the year started out a little bit bumpy, meaning that there were a lot of unknowns at that time, we are happy to report that financially we are doing very well. We've been able to weather the storm, per se, fairly well. It didn't always feel like that. We projected a positive budget back in February at our AGM. However, from March to July, there were some issues. We weren't exactly confident in our expectations, but government funding was still being announced, and we weren't really sure until May when we were back on the road. And overall, it created a rather tense environment in terms of the finances. But we're happy to report, though, that from July and onwards, with the work of the team and government funding making up the difference, we're in a much healthier position now for the 2020 year. There were some differences year over year on our financials, and you'll see some revenue decreases, including our activity revenue from classifications, as clearly they weren't classifying, as well as link revenue being down from the summer issue. You'll also see some expense decreases, such as travel, which includes the Royal, which is it's a very typically an expensive travel week. We also see some decreases in show support and sponsorships and in trade shows, and the swag usually given away at events like Twilight's, and of course the link with the summer issue. You'll finally see government programs being added. We applied and qualified for both the wage subsidy program as well, where we have to date received $110,000. And then there was the CEBA loan program where we qualified for the full $40,000 loan, $10,000 of which will be forgivable upon repayment. You can also expect to see these changes in the financial statements for 2020, and they will be presented at our annual general meeting in June of 2021. We also provided a snapshot of the branch revenue over expenses since 2015, what our average financial picture looks like.
So just working off of what Tara presented, we're going to take a little bit of a closer look at 2019 numbers, again, just to sort of build that foundation for what we look like, what we're going to look like moving forward. And so in terms of membership, we have about 3,500 members. This number decreases 2 to 3% per year, and that's a pretty stable decrease. We do bring on new members every year, but with the number of farms selling out, we can probably expect to see this number continue to dip. And in turn, of course, our membership dollars also decrease every year. Classifications, we've been down the last few years, but registrations are either holding steady or increasing, sort of depending on the market. Transfers, however, vary greatly. So they could be anywhere from 10,000 to 15,000, just depending on the year. But what's interesting is then when you look at our total activity levy combined, so that 12% paid on the activity, you'll see that we really work out to be about the same every year. So very small fluctuations in our activity levy, actual dollar value of our activity levy every year. In terms of Holstein clubs, So we have 36 Holstein clubs across Ontario with an average club size of 91. Just for sort of comparison purposes, Quebec has 26 clubs, so 10 less clubs. They run things a little bit different, but they actually have about 4,100 members total compared to our 3,500. So certainly larger clubs in terms of the average number of members per club.
So now that was a quick overview where the branch is sitting today. And so now we'd like to welcome President Gerald Skipper and CEO Vincent Landry to the floor. Gerald, oh, you're on mute.
Try again, Gerald.
Oh, you're
Cannot
still on
hear
mute.
you.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
But I can't see the slides, so sorry about that.
Can you see Tara and Marina? Just confirm.
No, I
you can
cannot.
see.
I cannot.
Gerald,
Somehow
don't.
I got cut out.
So do you remember your script, Gerald?
I think I am back. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thanks for granting us the opportunity to be part of your meeting this morning. Thank you for adapting to technology to do this meeting virtually, and also want to thank and congratulate Holstein Ontario branch for adapting to all the changes thanks to COVID and still have a successful year. It certainly has been a challenge to get through this. There's some innovation had to be done. And thank goodness for technology that we have the capabilities to meet together like this. So just a few quick updates on our ongoings at Holstein Canada. We are right now involved with what we call an industry summit, which is started by Lactanet, invited all the different partners involved in our industry. As you can see on the slide, AI, Dairy Farmers of Canada, Lactanet, and the breeds. We had a meeting recently with 80 people on board with virtually, some good discussions. And the challenge for us moving forward is, and you will hear this later on in the presentations as well, that we're always looking for to get more efficient, to move data between the industry partners. So this is the reason why we're having these get-togethers, to find ways to become more efficient, to utilize the monies that our members have, and so that we do not keep duplicating things and create extra costs. Just want to share with you from the election results. As you know, this was my last year as a Holstein Canada Board of Directors since representing Western Ontario. And I'm pleased to announce that Brian Slaughter, who is no stranger to you, has taken my place. Congratulations to Brian. He was a two-time term president of the Ontario Holstein branch. So welcome aboard. And also Nancy Beaver was re-elected as a director for Eastern Ontario on our board. One of the other thing is, in a minute, I will introduce Vincent to you, but of course, that's the biggest change at Holstein Canada is the changing of the CEOs. Especially, we had to do this, the last transition, or the beginning of the transition, the last process of hiring Vincent was done all virtually. Most of the board members have not met Vincent yet. Vincent has never had all of his staff at one time at the office at Holstein Canada. So it has been a little bit of a different way to start his role as CEO at Holstein Canada. He's done very well. He's certainly spent a lot of time at the office with whoever was there for that day to get connected and to start taking over the role as CEO. It's going very well. There's There's been lots of meetings. We have had more meetings than we would have had otherwise virtually. They've been shorter. As a board, we certainly miss our get-togethers after meetings where some more further discussions are being done, and to replace that, we don't make decisions as quickly perhaps as we would have if we were face to face, because we want to make sure we spend a little more time looking at it, and we can do this by having more meetings and shorter meetings. Having said that, today's presentation, we're going to talk about the Holston Canada Semi-Regionalization Project, which was part of our 2019 to 2021 strategic plan. As you know, that's when the plan was laid out, but certainly there was a lot more discussion beforehand till we arrived at the plan. So the whole process started probably 3.5 to 4 years ago, when we did the initial analyzing and came up with our strategic plan. And one of the things that we changed that as part of the strategic plan was our vision, and we became less focused on being a breed organization. We became more focused on a service provider to our members and enhancing them to become more efficient and to use our services. So, and part of that, what we included with it, those objectives is to improve the experience of members at each visit, which will be done through semi-regionalization. You have the opportunity to see our classifiers, the same classifier more frequent, develop new services that will adapt to present and future needs. This is definitely in line with our strategic plan also to, like I mentioned, we are a service provider, so we want to make sure that we adapt to our future needs. As Vincent will explain all this further, giving our employees a better quality of life, be less traveling, and making efficiency gains for the organization, since there's less traveling, less hospitality care for them through hotel accommodations and stops at restaurants and the like. So those will be budget savings, and that will create efficiencies. That's the high level of it all. I am pleased to introduce to you Vincent Landry, who's going to go deeper. Again, I should also share with you, as going through the CEO search process, there were a number of boxes that we wanted to tick off of qualifications for the new CEO. And it's certainly that we are very fortunate to have Vincent come on board, because he did tick off all the boxes. And Marina will also show slides down the road with the membership breakdown of Holston Canada, and a good large segment of our membership is from Quebec. To have somebody as qualified as Vincent in both languages is also a tremendous asset. And yes, it's been a great experience to go through this. So welcome, Vincent, to your first run of Ontario branch meetings and doing it virtually. So again, we'll have to travel together some other time and meet more members face to face. So take it away, Vincent, with the operational side of the presentation.
Thank you, Gerald. Thank you, Tara, for the invitation, and Marina. And good morning to everyone. It's my great pleasure to be here with you today. Like Gerald mentioned, I'm working more and more virtually and since the last 9 months, it have been pretty much what I do every day. So I will start a presentation, and if you have any question, you can use the chat box and send that to Marina, so we can handle your question at the end of the presentation. So just to start the presentation on the semi-regionalization project, I would like to give you a high-level presentation with some numbers, and I have to congratulate the management team. They have worked really hard to get that ready. So when we look at the first slide, you can see the number of farms we service per total milk producer in 2019. So it includes all the dairy producer. So you can see the level of endorsement for every service we deliver on farm. So if you look at the red bar, you can see the number of farm and the percentage of farm that use the registration service. The black one is for classification service, and the gray one are for the genomic testing service. So when you look, you can easily see that we have a higher level of endorsement for registration in Ontario, Quebec, and Atlantic. When you compare with West Province, the level of endorsement is more around 55 to 60%. When you look at the classification service, the trend is a little more different. So we can see that the level of endorsement for classification, it's similar for West and Atlantic Province. Still have a high level of endorsement for the classification service in Ontario and Quebec. We remember that in the past, we had many programs with incentive with the different AHI unit. So for Quebec and Ontario, these programs have been really good to keep people in the classification in the past. When we look at the genomic testing service, we can see that we have a low level of endorsement. And when we look at what's going on in the industry, we see more and more farms using the genomic service, but they use it with other providers. So we need to come back and think about our strategy in the future to capture this opportunity. So for us, when you see this kind of slide, yes, we've been more in detail for every province before to come back with our strategy for the future and the semi-regionalization plan. I will show you some more detail on the next few slides. But high level, when we look at the strategy, we are talking about the 3R strategy. So what that means? That means recruiting action, retaining action, and revisiting action. So the strategy by province will be different. We need to adapt ourselves to the market, and we need to adjust the way we deliver our service depending on the situation on some specific area. Meaning that for registration, our action could be totally different province to province. So example, we will talk more about recruiting action when we go out west. For registration, we see that the level of, we still have 50% registering and 50% don't register. So we kind of need to promote and try to recruit in the 4 provinces of BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. When we look at the situation for Quebec, Ontario, and Atlantic, we have a level of endorsement between 70 and 80%, meaning that all the action we need to do to recruit one more member will cost a lot of money, will take a lot of time and commitment from the part of the team. Because when you talk at any other field of activity, when you reach that 70 to 80%, it's a big commitment. So to gain one more member. So we are talking more about retention action. We need to be better to demonstrate the value to keep our member in for the registration. So we need to show the value. We need to go back to the basic of the registration and make sure we simplify the process to submit the registration to make the experience better. When we talk about the classification, the situation is a little different, but again, we talk a lot about recruiting action for West and Atlantic. So you understand why we have been in, we have decided to hire one more field staff in the West Province last fall. It's mainly because we have a lot of recruiting action to do for the 3 main service we deliver on farm. Because if you want to recruit, you need to be able to go on farm more than once and on a regular basis. The recruiting process, it's with time, it's with seeing the same face and be able to build a relation so you can gain one more member. So the situation for Ontario and Quebec will be, again, more retention action. So when we talk about retention, especially for the classification service, it's meaning diversify the portfolio and the option we offer for classification. Some big firm could expect a different service. Some more progressive people would like maybe to see the classifier more often on farm to reduce the pressure on the classification day. And for some, it will be the gold standard of the classification the way it is right now. So meaning that the one size fits all for classification will not be the solution in the future. We need to think about diversification. When we talk about genomic, it's basically it's recruiting for all province. But if we want to do that, we need to look how we can improve the way we deliver the service and make the solution more simple for every members. So we will work on that early in 2021, but we also need to make sure that all our staff is comfortable to talk about genomic. So if we talk a little more about the Ontario potential, we will look at the number together, and we made that exercise for every single province to really look at every single market and look at the opportunity we have for each province. So when we talk about registrations for Ontario, you can see the number of registering herds. It's around 2,700 herd. And the non-registering herds are 774. The average registration per farm is 42 registration a year. So when you look for registration, we have a potential to register 32,000 more animals per year. And that business opportunity for registration is around $350,000 a year. So we see there's still a potential, but like I mentioned, the level of endorsement for registration is 78. So to gain one more, it takes a lot of time and a lot of commitment to convince the extra 1% when you reach that level. And that's why we think we can commit more time to retain the membership with the registration service. When we talk about classification, we can see it's a different scenario. Our approach needs to be a little different. We have the number of classifying herds is around 2,000 members. The non-classifying herds is 1,361. So that means that we have a business opportunity for classification in Ontario around $275,000. And again, when we look, we have almost 40% of the dairy producers don't use a classification service. So yes, here we probably have some gain we can do. And with the fact we visit every single farm with the assessment program, and we have an opportunity to talk about it. We have one door that it's open on a regular basis. So we really want to capture this kind of opportunity to talk about the classification, but also we have to ask ourselves why we don't do more. It's probably because the way and the service we have right now don't fit the needs of everybody. So we need to change the way we deliver the classification and offer more options. When we look at the situation globally and why we have bring the semi-regionalization project was also to look at our efficiency and how we do with the service the way it is delivered now. So we break down all the numbers and we look at all the expense we have to deliver the classification service through the province of Ontario. So when we look at the net revenue, when you combine assessment and classification together, we do a net revenue of $3.3 million for the classification service. When we look at the direct costs, like Gerald mentioned, it's all the travel expense, the salary, the meal, and the accommodation, hotel, all that together. It's the direct cost to deliver the service. It's around $2 million a year for Ontario. So basically, when you look at the gross revenue, it's 1.3 million. But that 1.3 million doesn't include all the other organization overall expense. So it need to be take as an overall for the service, but not overall for the organization. So when you look per visit, we have a gross revenue of $135 per visit. making the overall margin at 39% for Ontario. This is slightly below our national average, and the national average for the margin for the classification service is more around 41%. So we look and we need to look how we can deliver that service on farm and every field service more on a more efficient way. So when we look at the total of opportunity for Ontario, as I mentioned, you have the herd visit, the number of cow we classify, and the number of animal we register. So when you put all that together, there's total business opportunity for Ontario is near $800,000 a year. So to capture this opportunity, like I mentioned, we just need to change our approach. We need to retain more when we talk about registration. We need to try to recruit some for classification, adapt our service, and we really need to talk more about genomic and do more revisit and be more often on farm when we talk about our program. So when we look at the conclusion, it's like I mentioned, just to summarize everything, the visit profit margin is a little tighter than the national average. The classifier profit margin is also tighter than the national average. We need to maximize retention for registration. Same thing, recruit for classification. And how we will do that, it will be to maximize the service opportunity on farm, maintain the profit margin, and increase the service we can offer to our membership. We will look, I will not go at the same level of detail for the other province and the other market. Just to give you an overview, you can see the Western province. When you do the total for all the services we deliver, it's around, again, a little over $800,000. When you look for Quebec, the total business opportunities is over $1 million. And when you look at the Atlantic, it's is near $200,000. So just to summarize, as you can see on this table, you have the net visit by province, and you can see the difference are big between West, Ontario, Quebec, but there's many factors involved. When we go out west, we are really efficient. We classify cow for 2 weeks, and then we bring the classifier back. But at every visit we do, we see a lot of cow per farm. If we compare to Quebec and Ontario, we almost classify 3 times the number of cow we classify in Ontario or Quebec per visit. So meaning that our classifiers are really efficient on every single farm. So that helped to reduce the cost for us to deliver the service out west. So there's good margin over there, but there's also some costs, because when the costs are higher because we need to travel, we need to fly over there. Same thing when we go in the maritime. So that's the 2 main variables, but at the same time, it offers us an opportunity to see with the profit margin percentage and compare apple with apple and see what we can improve and how we can do better. So when we look at the potential for the 3 different markets, again, it's just to summarize the number I present before. So you can see it's really comparable for Western market and Ontario, a little higher for Quebec because of the number of producers, and Atlantic. So for us, like Gerald mentioned, I first started during COVID, but we had a great opportunity to look at the situation before and post-COVID, especially for that project of semi-regionalization. So why it has been a great opportunity for us? It's because our classifiers start their day from home every single day for 2 months, meaning that we change our approach. We don't have the same expense. So it has been a great opportunity for us to see will we gain some efficiency if we go more with a semi-regionalization approach in the future? So as you can see, the pre-COVID gross visit was around $141 compared to the gross visit after COVID at $159, meaning that we have a gain of $18 more profit margin per visit after COVID. And our assumption, like I mentioned, we will not have a classifier working 100% of the time from home. Will not be possible to achieve that. But at least if we can bring the classifier to work 30 to 40% more often near their home, it's probably some gain we can do. Gain for the association, but also opportunity to develop new services in the future. So when we look at that, overall, it's probably some gain of efficiency around $85,000 a year. So it's substantial. It's really interesting for all the other aspects I mentioned. Will help to develop new service, will also improve the quality of life and the retention of our employee, especially the young one when they try to have a family life and have young kids at home. So when we compare the percentage for the margin, we are around 44% compared to 39% for Quebec and Ontario before COVID. So some people could be afraid to say, okay, guys, if you go with that project, what it will change for me if I like my classification service the way it is, what it's gonna bring me, and will it still be possible to have a different classifier on farm? So that means yes. Doesn't mean you will have the same classifier every visit. It just means that classifier will be able to work more often on the same area. So when we look at that, right now, the majority of our classifier work 80% of the time from home. And you can see the number of cow they score in home area, the number of farm they visit, and also the number of time it will go back on your farm. So right now at the situation, it will go back to your farm 1 time out of 7. If we go to our target to decrease that number by 30%, so if the classifier and the field staff can work 50% of the time from home and be able to talk more about all the portfolio of service we have, we gain a lot on the retention action and the revisit action, because it will help to see the same face more often and build relation with the membership. So 50% of the time mean he will classify around 5,000 cow on his area, and it will bring him to go back to your farm 1 time every 3 visits. That scenario doesn't include all the other service. So if he's doing some assessment, if he's doing some visit to talk about genomic or take more time on every classification visit, it will be more 1 out of 4. So for the one who like the classification service and have a different classifier on farm on a regular basis, 1 out of 4 mean that it will show up on your farm every 2 years, which is not I think it's not a bad thing. And it will also offer opportunity for the one who would maybe probably like to have the same classifier every visit, because for them, they value that, to have the same face, build that relation. It will give us the opportunity to do that or offer that option in the future. When we talk about option like that, people can say, okay, is the plan is totally done and can we say something about it? That's exactly what we want to do in 2021. So what you see, it's really high level. The detail of the plan are not built so far. So 2021 will be used to do some pilot project, one in Ontario, one in Quebec, to test something and to bring some idea and have the feedback of the membership about what we try and what we could implement in 2022. So basically, don't be surprised if you receive survey, if you are called to participate to some focus group, or if you are part of one of the pilot projects we would like to have in Ontario and Quebec. So for sure, we will use 2021 to do that. And we hope to be able to start the new approach in 2022. The only thing we would like to start to do in 2021 is to start to maybe hire some field staff on some specific area, so we can be able to cover the province better in the future and help to achieve the goal we have with the semi-regionalization. So Marina, Tara, it completes my presentation. I don't know if there's any question.
I don't see any in the chat, and I haven't received any via text, but if anyone does have any questions, even as Tara and I get into the Holstein Ontario components, please just put them in the chat or shoot me a text message on the number that'll be on the screen when we pull the slides back up. Vincent and Gerald will be on the full call. So if you think of something later on, we can absolutely, bring them back in to answer questions as needed. That's no problem. Just pull this back up.
Okay, thank you so much, Vincent. That was great. This is the second time we've watched this for those of us who are on the call again today. And once again, just hearing it again just reiterates the importance for good, solid research into plans and projects moving ahead and how important that is to make good, informed decisions. So thank you for that. We've been asked by a number of people, how did we come about sort of getting to the point where we're discussing our field service project. And once again, don't forget, there's the phone number at the bottom of the screen. Make sure to text if you have any questions about this presentation today. As we're going forward, you can ask your questions. But really and honestly, how we came to this stage of the game is just lots and lots and lots of discussions. And we've been frequently talking about this, about what we're going to do, what we hope to do over the next 5 to 10 years. And once a year, does anybody else hear that feedback? No?
Gerald, it might be on your end.
Anyways, okay, there we go. That's better. But anyways, like every board, we're always looking at where we're going in the next 5 to 10 years. And when you're on a board, it's not just about what happens while you're there. It's also looking about being the trustees of that organization. And when you do your best to try and help things move in a forward momentum, so that when the next group of directors come in, it's really about growing the industry and the organization. So this is what we've always been talking about. And so each year, Holstein Ontario directors sit down with Ontario-based national directors from Holstein Canada, and we talk about what we can do better. How can we offer more to our members, and where do we see ourselves 5 years from now? The goal of the discussions related to the project was to support field services in becoming more efficient and effective. Words that you will hear again and again as we go through this process. While we still want to maintain our branch programs, such as our youth events, club support, and breed promotion, but we need to be able to do that in a financially sound manner, and that is the plan. This idea, though, has swirled around not just the boards, but within the general membership for years now. And it's been discussed over the last couple of years in depth and has gotten us to where we are today.
So just before we jump into the next slide, Vincent, wondering if you can pop on. We've got a question. You mentioned same classifier 1 every 4 times. And so that should be being on your farm every 2 years, but shouldn't that ideally be once a year with 4 quarterly classifier visits?
Yes, Marina, I was looking to answer and write the answer down. So it's a really good question. And for us, it's something we would like to test. And we know that the need could be really different, but the frequency of the visit for the classifier will be something we will look at. And it could be really different for different reasons. I just think, take for example, a big farm with a big group of 2 years old, to classify every 3.5 months or every 7 months, depending if you use the mid-run or not, could be a lot of pressure on the herd and a lot of animal to classify. So we would like to test maybe to have opportunity to classify every 2 months on some farm. And for other farm, it could be because they have a great group of cow. They would like to do some marketing. So for them, the frequency could be also important because they look to market animals. So the classification and the score could be really important too. And for other people, it could be because they would like to match their mating program with the classification and use the results. So for them, it may be 3 times a year. So we know that the factor could be different than having something really rigid like we have right now that say it's every 3.5 months or every 7 months. So we would like to look really what is the best thing and why people want the classification more frequently at the farm. So it will be part of the thing we will put in on the pilot project. So it's a really good question.
Thanks, Vincent. Sorry about that. Just jumping back into the field service project. It's interesting, just building off of Tara's comments. I remember when I started in this role about 4 years ago, and I first heard, kind of about this idea when it comes to the relationship between Holstein Canada and Holstein Ontario. And I feel like it's just been mentioned by so many different people over the last 4 years as sort of this idea that's been floating around. I think it was maybe Oxford AGM. We actually had a member bring it up as well. So something that's certainly been out there. And a lot of people have wondered why now? Holstein Ontario has been around for 40 years. Why is now the time to look at it? And for us, there's really 3 key areas that are really important to the why now question. The first is more technology. So we're seeing more technology on farm, and we're also seeing more technology from Holstein Canada in the programs and services and offerings that they're giving out. And so I think that's really important to understand that trend is probably going to continue. The second one is an increase in need. And this is twofold. So the first one is that we are getting more requests to go on farm. And those requests are either coming to us directly or through Holstein Canada, the leads from their customer service, where they're saying, this person wants an on-farm visit. The second is the need to be proactive. And Vincent actually talked a little bit about this in his presentation. Brutal honesty, I think all of you have probably heard from someone a comment that went along the lines of, I don't see the value in classification, or I don't see the value in registration. And so it's really, really important that we proactively reach out to members to demonstrate that value in those services and to help them understand how to use those services effectively, to make sure that if they're paying for those services, that they're getting the most value possible out of those services. And so I think that's something that's really important in the increase in need that we're seeing for field service. And then the third reason is actually around future plans. And so this means looking at the 5 to 10 year plans for Holstein Ontario, for Holstein Canada. And it's something that I think would be beneficial for all of you to do as well. I want you to think about 10 years down the road, what do you see Holstein Ontario looking like? What do you envision the branch to look like and what do you see them, what role do you see them playing in the industry? And then on top of that, there's this idea of the 6-inch pipeline. And this is something that we use internally amongst the staff, and that the board also uses as sort of a base, a base sort of concept. What we mean by that is that we are all paid by the same 6-inch pipeline on your farms. And so it's really important in everything that we do that we're being very financially cognizant of that, and that we are understanding where our finances come from, and that we're respecting those funds and using them to the best advantage that we can to bring you the most value that we can. Because at the end of the day, we're all paid from that 6-inch pipeline. And so those are the 3 really important concepts, I think, when it comes to answering the why now question.
Okay, so now we're going to move into the field service projects to look at what the timeline for this looks like. We are in phase 1 and to present the project to the members with the hopes of generating lots of discussion and feedback. Our next phase is the actual vote of the bylaws at our AGM. And so to be clear, the proposed bylaw change must pass for the project to proceed. So if the bylaw change passes and the project proceeds, phase 3 is to begin any new staff training and to prepare for the transition in the summer of 2021. We expect the transition of the field reps to happen in the fall of 2021. And once everything is complete, we will see the activity fee reduced to 6% effective January 1st of 2022. So there's lots of phases, but also this is a chance to provide opportunity for discussion and feedback from the members so that everyone feels comfortable and prepared moving forward. Proposed bylaw changes then include, we're going to give a brief overview of the proposed bylaw changes related to this particular field service project. But if you want to see the 2 proposed changes, you can either check out the website under the About Us tab and under the annual general meeting section, or you can stay tuned for the upcoming winter issue of the link where this will all be laid out as well for you. And I just want to explain one of the changes related to the field service project, and the other one is unrelated and actually relates to the district executive meetings. So that's why there may be some confusion there, but they're 2 separate items. So this proposed change will be discussed at the district executive meetings in January though. So the proposed bylaw changes. Here we have the proposed bylaw changes and what is related to the field service project. The biggest difference will be that you see in this proposed bylaw changes is that we're going from 5 bullet points to 4, with the removal of the first point related to employment of field staff, as it's been highlighted in yellow at the top. After that change, we've tweaked some of the lines. For example, in the line regarding youth, we've added in leadership because we really believe we are working to build the leaders of tomorrow. And I don't imagine that there's anyone that can dispute that all of the leadership roles that we've seen in all of our industry organizations, those kids have all come out of different programs that the dairy industry has encouraged and promoted over the years. So that's a huge pillar for us, and believing in the leadership that we support is important. You'll also notice that we left in the bullet to promote and educate on the value of membership, registration, and participation in breed improvement programs through industry and club events. We may not be fulfilling this via field service, but this concept is fundamental to who we are as an organization, and it means we will always be looking at opportunities to speak positively about Holstein Canada services, and hopefully providing the contact information for the field reps to potential members and producers who are interested. We did, however, change it to read, promote, and educate. In the end, we have to remember that we're all working towards one goal and we're in this together. So just a reminder, if you want to look at this in more detail, please check out our website and the next issue of the link.
Sorry, just want to mention, Jennifer, I do see your question. I'm going to address it a little bit later on when we get into the activity slides. So let's take a look at our current structure and what this field service project would actually entail. And so right now we have our current structure laid out very plainly. So we have our board of our membership at the top, 3,500. Then we have our board of directors below that. Then we have our general manager. And then we have our current structure in terms of staff. We've got our secretary, Mary, and our editor and marketing coordinator, Andrea. And then we have the 3 field representatives. And so then you can also see our core business areas. And these are just a really basic list. We do a a lot of different things, of course, but this helps to sort of organize what this project is going to look like, a really basic list of our core areas. So we're looking at on-farm service, we're looking at youth activities, club activities, and promotion activities. And those 4 pieces are funded by the activity fee of 12% and then the membership fee of $65. So let's look at what the change would look like. So still very, very similar structure. You can see the membership at the top, 3,500 members. Then you can see the board below that, then the general manager. And then on the one side, we still have our admin and our editor. So Mary and Andrea would remain there. And then we have part-time event support or part-time event coordinators. We're looking at 3 to 4, we think would be a good number for this. And these individuals will be the support for running events. And, you know, when we think of our ideal candidate for this role, it's the people that we already see at events. They're the people that are, you know, involved on committees, involved in 4-H, they're ingrained in the communities. I'm sure all of you have individuals like that that you can think of in your own communities and probably could come up with a few names. I actually think it's a little bit similar to the dairy educators, the ones that are part-time. So people that are very dedicated to the industry, very dedicated to the community, and just very capable, you know, people, but maybe not looking for that full-time role. And so then in turn, you can see our core business areas, and you'll see that 3 of the bullet points still remain. So we still have the youth activities, the club activities, and the promotion activities. But those will now be funded by the activity fee of 6% and the membership fee of $65. So you might be wondering, where did the reps go? Well, we have a little bit of a snapshot, just a little snippet of Holstein Canada's team. And so here you can see that the 3 field reps, all 3 of them would be joining the existing field team at Holstein Canada. And so what does this really mean for them? Well, it means that they now have access to Holstein Canada programs and resources. They have access to Holstein Canada training, as well as up-to-date customer activity and a shared knowledge that comes with working in that bigger team where you've got individuals who are experts in all different areas and you can really lean on them, you know, to share knowledge across the team. And so I want to just take a second to say something. I'm really, really impressed with our 3 field reps and how they have handled this. I want you to try and put yourself in their shoes for a second and how it would feel on the day that I told them about this project. And I told them that if this project goes through, if this project proceeds, that they would have a different boss and that they would be working for a different organization. And of course they were sad. We have a really amazing team dynamic and they were sad to be losing that, as I am. But I think it shows a tremendous amount of character, a tremendous amount of integrity and professionalism and maturity that every single one of them looked at this as just such an amazing opportunity for the membership. They see the benefits that can come through this. They see the benefits for the members, the benefits for themselves and their job. And I'm just really, really impressed with that integrity and professionalism that they've shown through this. And so I just want to publicly acknowledge that and thank them and let them know how much I appreciate their support and their hard work through what is certainly, you know, an interesting time for them in their careers. So let's now jump into the member benefits. And the member benefits play really, really well off the benefits for the reps. So there's 2 main areas that I want to talk about. The first one relates to going from 2 field teams down to 1. So you've heard the word a few times through these presentations, both from Holstein Canada and on our end, and that's efficiencies, looking for those efficiencies. By going from 2 teams to 1, everything runs more efficiently. It means economy of scale, it means shared systems, and all of that means savings, means money in the bank. And that's really important. But the best part is that Holstein Ontario and Holstein Canada felt that it was really important to pass those savings along to the membership. And that's why you're seeing that 12% activity fee be reduced by 50% down to 6%. So that's a huge benefit for the membership. The other benefit is in effectiveness. And that's when we talk about value, the value that you're bringing. And that shared knowledge, the training, everything that's going to happen with the merger of the 3 field reps at Holstein Ontario and the Holstein Canada team, that's going to bring more visits, that's going to bring better visits, that's going to bring more value to the farms and the members that they're visiting. The reality is that if you choose to accept a visit from a field rep, then you are giving up 2, 3, 4 hours of your very precious time. And so we need to make sure that we are giving you as much value as possible for the time that you give us for that visit. And so that's a really, really important benefit and piece that's come out of this that I think is important to recognize. So how do we compare? It's always, it's always important to talk about what's happening in Ontario, but it's also important to understand what that looks like across the country. And so here we've laid out the activity fee and membership for all of the different branches. And so this can be helpful, especially when you look at what the reduced activity looks like. So right now we are the 2nd highest activity fee. We're sitting behind Quebec, who's at 13%, and we're at 12%. Should this project proceed and the activity fee be reduced to the 6%, we'll become the 2nd lowest, sitting right behind BC at 4%. So really, really beneficial to see that. And that also helps you compare what we're able to achieve as a branch with our finances with the rest of the provinces across Canada. It's really helpful then having an understanding of what we're achieving for the dollar value that we have. So we're now going to get into the activity piece. Before that, Jen, I'll just answer your question. So Jennifer asked, why has Ontario Holstein not held any Zoom calls prior to today? Why can't you hold a monthly lunch and learn with guest speakers to try and add value to your members? Example of topics: how to read a milk check, how to prepare for SNF changes coming, how to use Dairy Trace. Really, really great question, and one that's certainly been talked about many times before, not necessarily the Zoom aspect, but the education aspect, because I think it's something, so many farmers out there are looking for some of that education, just to become better managers of their farms. The Zoom aspect is something we have really only adopted because of COVID. And I think that's very fair to say across the industry. There's a lot of other industries that have adapted technology significantly sooner when it comes to sort of Zoom platform or webinar platforms. And I would say that ag in general, it's a generalization, but in ag, we've been a little slower to adopt, and it's really been COVID that has pushed us into using these platforms more effectively. And so I think that's opened up a world of opportunity to do things efficiently, to help connect with our members, to help educate. This summer, because it is a little bit hard to have events, sort of live events in the summer when farmers are very busy. So this summer we did try to share, we called them Tip Tuesdays on our Facebook pages and through social media, where we really shared tips and tricks for using our services more effectively, how to effectively breed a bullproof, where to find information on haplotypes, all those different breeding strategy resources that members might find really beneficial when it comes to using classification and registration and genomic testing. And so we've started compiling all those resources to really help educate members to use services more effectively. And actually, Jenna Hedden, our Eastern Field Rep, has been working on a financial component to that. We were originally going to look at doing a lunch and learn in person. And so we were in the midst of planning that when COVID hit. And so we've sort of adjusted that and said, how can we do this virtually? And what are our options to do this virtually? But there's the live option. And then there's also the option of just sharing that education out where people can go and access it in their own time. And, I think both have value and both have merit. So we're sort of looking at those two pieces, but really, really great recommendations, Jennifer, and I'll be sure to add them to our list because I think there's something that definitely have merit for any member out there to bring value to their farm. So thank you for that. So you'll remember earlier, I mentioned the 3 different bullet points of the areas that will still, have activities that are really beneficial to the members. And those 3 areas were the youth activities, they were the club, they were the promotion activities. So those are really catch-alls. I'm going to go through each one of those in more detail to show any potential impact. What I do want to mention before I do that is just that we've tried to capture everything, but we do a lot of different things. And so if we've missed something, please just shoot us a message or put it in the chat, or if it's after and you think of something, just let us know and we'll be sure to answer it for you and let you know of any potential impact on there. As Tara said, youth is a huge part of what we do. We very much believe that we are building the leaders of tomorrow and that this is a very important aspect of the branch. And so as you can see going through the list, we have no impact on our youth activities. We're still going to be at the TD Classic, running the support for the TD Classic. We're still going to be supporting the Dairy Youth Trust Fund. All of these different pieces are just such an important part of the branch and what we do. So no expected impact on branch youth activities. Moving on to club activities, this one's a little bit more complicated. And one of the reasons for that is you'll see two of the line items have stars beside them. So district executive meetings and club AGMs. The reason those are starred is because any potential impact on those are actually related to the second bylaw. So you'll remember that Tara mentioned there's two bylaw changes. One is unrelated to field service. So these two are unrelated to field service. And we will be talking about those in greater depth and taking feedback and having really good discussions about those at the district executive meetings in January. So stay tuned if you attend those for discussions at those meetings. Two things I want to mention for club activities, and they don't show up in this sort of slide or this grid because I didn't know how to translate them. The first one is, our field reps aren't going to fall off the face of the earth. They're still there, they're still around, and they're still going to be going to these events. So these events are really amazing and important opportunities to connect with members, to meet new people, to build those relationships that are so incredibly valuable when you're out in those communities, visiting farms, and really trying to make sure you have positive relationships with the membership. And so the field reps will still be going to some of these events. The difference is they'll be going under the Holstein Canada banner, which is why they wouldn't show up necessarily on, on this slide, which is the branch club activities. So they'll still be out and about at things. They just aren't under the Holstein Ontario banner at that point. The other piece that I want to mention for this, and again, I'm just not sure how to translate it onto this slide. We've had a sort of growing list of things that we've wanted to do for clubs that are more along the sort of education and discussion side. So at the top of the list for a while now has been some governance training. And we've wanted to do this, but every time it seems like we settle down to tackle that item on our to-do list, we get a bunch of field rep requests. We get a bunch of requests for farm visits, and those have to take priority. And so we never seem to get those pieces done. We just don't have enough time in a day. And so I'm really excited that this project might give us that chance to really tackle some of those pieces on our to-do list related to club support. And I think of them, like I said, less of in terms of activity and more in terms of that sort of education and discussion with clubs to help them be as effective as possible. So just two pieces that don't show up here, but I wanted to mention because I personally think that they're really important for everyone to be aware of. And then we jump into branch promotion activities. This one's sort of the catch-all, everything else that's related to promoting our breeders, promoting our farmers, promoting Ontario genetics and Ontario cows. And so you'll see here in this grid as well that we're expecting no impact on those pieces either. So really happy to see that we can continue a lot of those recognition and celebration pieces when it comes to that. So that's a review of all the activities. And like I said, if there's any that we missed on here completely, let me know and I will 100% let you know of any potential impact on there. And if there's any comments or suggestions you have in regards to these, we're in the feedback stage. So please, please, please reach out to a director, share your comments, share your questions, share your ideas, because it's the perfect time to do that. And just before I pass it over to Tara, we were sent a couple questions in, I think it was this morning. And so I just want to answer those. So one of the questions, what services or value are we going to see as members from the 6% activity fee going forward? And I hope I addressed that in the 3 slides that I just presented. So those 3 different core business areas of branch promotion, youth activities, and club activities. The second question, and this is a really good question, what is being done with the activity fee collected in excess of 6% during 2021? Far more will be collected than is needed for transition costs. So what this question is referencing, and I'm just going to backtrack just a little bit to help answer it, is the actual schedule. So you'll recall when Tara presented this, we are at phase 1, but it's important to see that, should this bylaw pass and should we proceed with the field service project, the actual activity fee will not be transitioning until January 1st, 2022. So that means in 2021, the activity fee will still be the 12%. And 2021 is really the year of transition, for lack of a better name. And so during that year, we have a couple different things happening. So we have new staff training and preparing for the transition. In order to make this a really seamless transition for the members, especially in regards to that event coverage, that means we're going to need to bring on some of those new staff earlier and allow them to begin training with the existing staff. And so that's really important to understand that, we're going to be having many staff on board at that time to help with that transition. The other piece is the plan to transition field service in the fall of 2021. That is an estimated or anticipated date. So until the bylaw is voted on and we know whether or not this project is going to proceed, it's very, very difficult to sit down and actually set dates to these things, because we want to allow for some flexibility to respond to the needs of our members during that time. And so we felt that by allowing 2021 to be the year of transition and making sure that we have that budgeted money there, that puts us in a very safe place, should that date need to be sort of pushed back a little bit, just to sort of address, something that might come up. And so I think that's why we went with that date. And I think that's really important to understand all the different transition pieces that will happen throughout that year. Sorry, I just got another question. Great question. So will the Ontario AGM be held at the same location in June? So we are looking at, so we're still holding it in Wellington County, but the organizing committee is looking at, make sure I get this right, the Grand River Raceway in Elora. Hopefully I have the right name there, because they have this amazing venue that offers an outside option. So we don't know what the rules are going to look like in June. We will like to hold an in-person event. We understand and respect that that may not be possible. And if it's not, we'll address that in plenty of time to offer virtual options. But what I really like about this raceway option is they actually have an outdoor space that can be used for gatherings. And so if we need to look at that, we have the flexibility to do that versus a hotel where you don't really have that option of moving outdoors. So that's where the contract is signed. That's where the event will be held, and more details for that in the winter issue of the link, which will be out in January. But very good question there as well. I'm just going to bear with me as I just head back. Okay.
Okay, so we're ready to wrap up, and but in the meantime, where can you learn more? So in terms of the finances, our 2020 financial statements will be presented at the AGM, as we've stated before. We'll also present our 2021 budget at the AGM as well. So if you're interested, we've also uploaded our recent annual reports, which include our full financial statements, to the website. So you can check those out there and have a look and see if you can find what interests you there. And following our AGM in June, our annual report for 2020 will also be uploaded. Info on the field service project, as mentioned, our upcoming link will have more details, and we'll also answer questions and discuss at the virtual club executive meetings in January of 2021. We'll have more details on those meetings coming soon as well for everybody. And then, of course, we're always here to discuss club AGMs and events. Lastly, once again, if you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to contact your director in your area. Their contact information is listed on our website in the About Us tab. I want to thank everyone who signed on with us here today. We respect that you have very busy schedules, and that the importance, though, of getting this information out to the membership, so it's all very transparent, and that I hope that the presentations that were done today by both Vincent and Marina have provided really good foundational information as to why it makes sense now to move forward in the direction that we are hoping to go. And that this is our chance to continue to be as relevant in this industry and as important and as leaders that you've always had, and the leadership that you've always respected. And so we are humbled and honored to always work towards the wishes of our members. And so we're really hoping that this has enabled you to see that we are trying to be as transparent as possible with as much information. So thank you again for signing on with us today. And if there's any more questions, please feel free to send them in, and we will get the answers to you.
I do actually have a question that was texted. So if we end up doing custom classification, how will that affect the value of our cows' scores? Can a custom classified herd still get official scores on their cows?
Good question. I mean, that's part of the new program. We would like to investigate what the membership really want. And that's some of the question that will be part of the mass survey we will send out probably this winter. So all the membership will have some question about classification to answer, and that's a good one. And it's one of the one we would like to ask them, everybody, what they think about that. So it won't be part of only a pilot project. It will be a general question for everybody, because I think the opinion about that could be really different. But it's like we said, 2021 will be a good time for us to investigate and find answer before we develop anything too particular. So on that, I don't want to bring that down too quick on that specific topic.
I think that's it's interesting because it's a really good point. You know, when I mentioned earlier about thinking of what you want the branch to look like 5 years or 10 years from now, what you want Holstein Canada to look like 5 years, 10 years from now, it's great to even extend that into what you want classification or, you know, the other services to look like 5 to 10 years from now. And 2021, I think for both organizations is going to be a really important year for you to share that feedback. So give some thought to those different pieces and share that feedback to Holstein Ontario and to Holstein Canada to help build, you know, what the branch and what Holstein Canada are going to look like in the future, and really give some thought to that so you can be a very active participant in those discussions and an active member in giving that feedback, because I think that's very, very beneficial when we have that from our membership. Gerald, do you have any comments that you want to mention?
No, just that it's been a good meeting. Thanks for allowing us to be part of it. I want to congratulate Holstein Ontario again for adapting to different technology to get through this. Thank you for your leadership, Marina, as General Manager of the Ontario branch, and Tara, congratulations as Chair and navigating through this. So thanks.
Perfect. Thank you, Gerald. Nothing else. I don't see any other questions. So if any do pop up, please do reach out and just reach out to a director, myself, someone, and your question will be asked. I absolutely promise you. Tara, any final comments on your end?
No, once again, I just want to encourage everyone to do as much research as you can. When you have questions, make sure you call someone, check out the website, look for the information. I think that the key to all of this is really information. And I think that between Vincent's huge amount of work that he's done in a very short time he's been there, as well as Marina's, it's just complemented the conversations that have been happening in this industry. And I think that we are all ready for the future and what is and what's in store for us in this industry. And I think that it's what's kept us so successful over the years, meaning the dairy industry, is that we are always able to look at an opportunity that presents itself and to take advantage of that and to move forward in a positive way. And so I really encourage everyone to continue to come along with us and share this journey as we move ahead. And we thank you so much for signing on with us today.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Alrighty, bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.